Hey everybody, I want to talk to you about 5 things that betta fish need in order to live a long and healthy life. Now before we get started, I just want to say that this is not a complete betta fish care guide, so if you are considering getting a betta fish or if you have one already, please do more research rather than just watching this one video, because I do not give you all the information you're going to need in order to take care of your betta fish. There are some things that I don't cover in this video that betta fish do absolutely need, such as water changes, for example. So please make sure you do as much research as you can to make sure that your betta fish lives a long and healthy life. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with my list of 5 things that betta fish need in order to live long and happy lives. The first thing on my list that betta fish absolutely need is a proper sized tank. I understand that when you bought your betta fish at a pet store, it most likely came in a little cup. That cup is not an ideal home for a betta fish, and keeping your betta fish in a cup or something tiny like that is not appropriate. Additionally, you should not be keeping your betta fish in a jar or a bowl or anything like that long term. According to the majority of care guides that exist, the bare minimum size tank for a betta fish is 2.5 gallons. However, it is unanimously agreed upon that bigger is better, and that 5 gallons is actually a better minimum size than 2.5. Unfortunately, many of these betta kits that pet stores sell right there with the betta fish are much smaller than 2.5 gallons. Some of them as small as 1/4 of a gallon. These are not ideal homes for your betta fish. And even if you go to the pet store's website and look up the minimum tank size for a betta fish, it will say 2.5 gallons. So I find it very interesting that they sell all of these little micro tanks that are much smaller than 2.5 gallons right next to the betta fish. Also, there really is no such thing as too large of a tank for your betta fish. I have one in my 29-gallon tank right here. There's another in this 20-gallon tank right there. I have seen people keep betta fish in their 75-gallon tanks and 150-gallon tanks before. The fact of the matter is, depending on what other fish you have in the tank, you can keep a betta fish in a tropical community tank. As long as you only have one, obviously, they do fight with each other. But for just a single betta fish and no other fish at all, if you just want to take really good care of them, I recommend you get a fish tank somewhere between 5 gallons and 20 gallons. And 10 gallons seems to be a really popular choice. The second thing that betta fish absolutely need is a filter. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who swear that you can get a betta fish and you don't need a filter for it because they go to the surface of the water and they breathe air. And that is true, they do go to the surface of the water and breathe air. However, they're still living in the water and they poop in that water. And after so long, that poop starts to build up and that water is going to get nasty. And no fish is going to be healthy if it's just living in its own filth. There are a few things to keep in mind when getting a filter for your betta fish. First of all, bettas are not actually very good swimmers. And so you want something that has either a low current or an adjustable current. Personally, I like to use sponge filters because they produce a very small amount of current in compared to something like a hang-on back filter. However, if you do use a hang-on back filter, you can get one that has an adjustable current, or you can baffle the current by putting sponges over the intake tube and the output. The third thing that betta fish absolutely need is the proper temperature. The ideal temperature range for a betta fish is between 78 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or 25.5 to 26.5 degrees Celsius. Bettas are a tropical fish and they come from a tropical climate where it's always warm. They can survive in water as low as 72 degrees or as hot as 86 degrees, but those extreme temperatures should not be what the betta fish lives in for too long. If you get any higher than 86 degrees, you're going to cook the fish and it's going to die. And if you get any lower than 72 degrees, it is just way too cold for the fish to survive. And even as low as 72 degrees is still not good. They should not be in that kind of temperature long term. If you notice that your betta fish is lethargic or lazy, then that may not actually be its personality. That may be a symptom of the water being too cold. Keeping your tank at the high end of the betta's survivable range, as in above 80 but below 86 degrees, is also bad because that can shorten your betta's lifespan. The warmer the temperature is, the more it speeds up their metabolism, and the faster metabolism results in a shorter lifespan. The fourth thing that a betta fish needs is a varied diet. What I mean by this is you should not be feeding your betta fish literally the exact same thing every single day of its life. Feeding the same thing every single day is both boring to your betta fish and also not nutritious to your betta fish. Bettas can get bored with a certain food if they eat it too much. They can lose interest in it, not want it anymore. And so it's a good idea to switch up their food as often as you can to keep them interested in it. There are many different food options for your betta fish that are appropriate and acceptable and easily accessible as well. Those include processed foods such as pellets and flakes, and frozen foods including bloodworms and brine shrimp. You can even feed your betta live foods such as daphnia or live baby brine shrimp. Personally, I feed my betta fish fluval bug bites, frozen bloodworms, and frozen brine shrimp, and I switch it up every day. Occasionally they do get flake food as well, but I don't like to use that as often as the other ones I just mentioned because I feel like it's not as nutritious. One thing to keep in mind when feeding your betta fish is to not overfeed them. They are voracious eaters and they will eat until they pop. They will literally eat every single bite of food you put in their tank. And if they overeat, they can become bloated, they can become constipated, and they can actually get sick and die from this. It's best to feed your betta fish only once per day and to skip a day every single week to give them a chance to fully digest and process their food. The fifth and final thing that betta fish need is enrichment. What I mean by this is they need stuff in their tank to interact with, stuff to lay on, stuff to rest on, stuff to hide in, stuff to explore, stuff like plants and driftwood and caves and hides. Betta fish are actually very intelligent fish, and if you offer them absolutely no mental stimulation at all, they can get very bored and lethargic. Another way to offer enrichment to your betta fish is to provide it with some tank mates. By tank mates, I don't mean other betta fish. I mean other fish that your betta can get along with, such as rasboras or tetras or maybe platies, or other aquatic animals that your betta fish can get along with, such as snails or maybe shrimp. Of course, if you are providing your betta fish with tank mates, you need to make sure it's in a large enough tank to support those tank mates. For example, if you have a 5-gallon tank and you think your betta fish needs tank mates, don't go out and get a school of 20 tetras, because a 5-gallon tank is not large enough for that. Before you get any tank mates for your betta fish, make sure you do the appropriate research to find out what fish work best for the tank that you have that would also get along with a betta fish. Well, there you have it, guys. That's my list of 5 things that betta fish need in order to live long and happy lives. If you have any other suggestions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Of course, betta fish need more than just the 5 things I covered here. So if you do have a betta fish or you're thinking about getting a betta fish, make sure you do a lot more research than just watching this video from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope that you learned something. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you're not subscribed to me already and you're this far into the video, you probably should be subscribed. So hit that subscribe button as well. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.